Superman for the win! Wait, what? Why is he wearing glasses right now? He's not Superman yet, is he? So why does he have to hide his identity? Oh boy, this is gonna be interesting. Here's the review. Hey, what's up and welcome back to Interpreting the Stars, where today I'm joined once more by the one and the only Mike from the Z Review to discuss the final film in the Superman anthology of movies, or at least the last film on my Blu-ray set. It's Superman Returns. 5 years after the events of Superman 2, Superman returns to Metropolis only to realize that his one true love, Lois Lane, has married and bore children in his absence, and Lex Luthor has once again escaped from prison. What's old Lex up to this time? Well, he simply wants to grow his own city with the Kryptonian science that's found in the crystals that are found in Superman's Fortress of Solitude, mixed of course with kryptonite. This will potentially kill billions of people, so Superman must stop it. First of all, I want to give a huge thanks to Mike for joining me in this review, and of course, all of the reviews up to this point. It's been awesome having you on for these films, and I've left a link to his channel in my description box below for you all to check out. He's got a lot of really interesting stuff over there, so give him some love, tell him I sent ya. Now, on to Superman Returns. I think in general, this isn't really a highly loved film. Some people do hate it, but I think most people just kind of find it mediocre, and I'd have to agree with that assessment. I definitely don't hate it, but I constantly have the belief that it could be easily better than what it was. And so let's talk about some of the things that I really like here. First of all, this film pays a lot of tribute and homage to the classic series with Christopher Reeve. Obviously, it's supposed to take place in the same series, but it's also kind of trying to be its own thing at the same time. You'll notice the same score by John Williams is in there, which of course is iconic, and you'll notice Brandon Routh, who looks kind of like Christopher Reeve and sounds exactly like him. You'll notice little nods here and there with the things that Superman says, or maybe the nervous tics that Clark does from time to time. The respect for the original series is undoubtedly there. I also can't help but notice that after the first 4 films versus this one, that Superman Returns has the best cinematography, best computer graphics. If we're purely looking at these 5 films, I can't really ignore the fact that this one technically looks the best, because if we're being honest with one another, those Reeve films did have questionable graphics when it came down to green screen. Another really great aspect of this film, and one of my favorite things actually, is Kevin Spacey's portrayal of Lex Luthor. Personal life and controversy aside, he plays a perfect Lex. You sense the Gene Hackman in his script or dialogue, but his actual performance is similar to Michael Rosenbaum in Smallville, so he's like the perfect mixture of what I want to see from Lex. Even his drive, the thing that he's trying to do in this movie, is right on par with what you'd see in the original films. That is, something akin to a James Bond villain plot. Take something away from people so that they have no other choice than to pay you to use your thing. For the most part, those are my main takeaways when it comes down to positives. But before I talk about anything that I consider negative, let's hear what Mike has to say. Take it away, dude.
Hey guys, what's going on? It's Mike once again from the Z Review, and thank you so much for Dave at Interpreting Stars for having me back on yet another Superman review. I've absolutely loved collaborating on the series. I've loved having the chance to jump on board with these reviews and seeing these movies for the first time. A little bit gutted that the series is coming to the end. However, one interesting thing I just want to point out before I start with my comments, I just want to show you guys this very quickly. So I'm not sure if you can see that as clear because it's very fainted by now, but essentially this is a ticket that I have still to this day from seeing Superman Returns on July 29th of 2006. So I've actually seen this movie before. Compared to the original Superman movies, which I hadn't actually seen any of them at all. This movie definitely has a bit more clarity than I originally did back then when I was 14 years old. Yeah, let me just firstly get out the way the plot of this movie. So it's based 5 years after the events of Superman 1 and 2, where Superman is gone from Earth, or he's gone from Metropolis at least, and in that time things have changed. Lex Luthor is up to his schemes and he's up to no good as usual, and he's looking to set up a new city where he can rule that city. People want to buy property, he'll charge them over the hilt for the prices of the property and essentially get rich in the meantime, but also trying to kill Superman. The plot of this is very similar to the original Superman movies. Lex Luthor always breaks out of prison, which by now you would think he'd be in like a straitjacket or something, guarded 24 hours a day in an isolated cell, so he can never get out of prison. But the guy always does. He always has one helper or another. Also is directed by Bryan Singer, who is used to doing like the X-Men movies. We'll not talk about Dark Phoenix for this review because that is absolutely garbage. Deserves to be in the trash and never to be spoken of again. However, the movie this time round with Lex Luthor is starred by Kevin Spacey, so we'll leave Bryan Singer and Kevin Spacey's personal lives out of this review. But our protagonist this time is Brandon Routh as Clark Kent / Superman, and we've also got Kate Bosworth as Lois Lane and James Marsden as Richard White. So what did I think of this movie? Did it improve over the original time I watched it in 2006? Short answer is no, because I think this time round I've got a completely different viewing experience compared to the first time I actually watched this movie. I hadn't seen the original Superman movie, so I kind of went into this completely open-minded back then when I was a teenager. So firstly, that's a completely different aspect as to how I watched it nowadays. The fact that I'd actually watched the original 4 Superman movies thanks to Dave, and this is set after Superman 1 and 2. Let me just kind of break down a couple of positives to start with. Firstly, I thought the CG in this movie wasn't that bad. I actually thought it was done pretty well, and I kind of like the use of some of the practical effects that they used. I also liked Brandon Routh's performance as Superman. Between the switching of Clark Kent and Superman, I think Brandon Routh played that out pretty well. You can tell that there's a difference between the Superman and Clark Kent character, of course with the famous hairstyle, which was portrayed firstly by Christopher Reeves. But I definitely think he kind of interpreted that really well. Maybe not as good as Christopher Reeves, because for me, after seeing all 3 interpretations of Superman, at least the 3 that I know, definitely Christopher Reeves is the best one. However, I think Brandon Routh did this pretty good. The best scene in this movie that I still remember from 2006 is the scene where Superman saves the plane and lands it in the baseball stadium. I always remembered that scene, and I was looking forward to seeing that again, and I actually appreciated that scene and how it came to that conclusion in this movie. So overall, I would say those were my positives, and I like the little nods to Superman as well, the original movie, so I will give it that. However, unfortunately, the negatives outweigh the positives by a mile or by a mountain. So the issues are with this movie, if you've seen the original Superman movies, especially the first 2, Brandon Routh, I guess you could get away with as sort of being Christopher Reeves' interpretation of Clark Kent. He looks a bit like him, albeit that he is younger. But Lois Lane by Kate Bosworth looks nothing like Margaret Kidder, and this is supposed to be a direct sequel, but none of them look like the original characters. So for me, when I saw that straight away and I read the plot, I was like, well, hold on, aged Lois Lane, so they at least looked similar to the original cast. Otherwise, why not just call it a different Superman movie or start it fresh from having these characters? I wasn't too sure what they were going with that. I didn't think Kevin Spacey was too bad as Lex Luthor, although his performance was very mixed. At times he executed some lines actually really well. I thought that it kind of was a little bit better than what Gene Hackman did. However, overall the most of the performance of him was kind of outdone by Gene Hackman, because just owned the role of Lex Luthor. But at least Jesse Eisenberg, for his interpretation of Lex Luthor, fits into the role of, say, the Justice League. Whereas I felt like Kevin Spacey at sometimes just came across maybe a little bit awkward, or at least the script that was written for him really wasn't suited for this film, or the fact that overall the script for this movie, if they're going to make a continuation on the original Superman movies, they executed this version of it quite poorly in my opinion, and I think ultimately that's why this film possibly flopped in terms of the reception that it received, because they're going to straight away go towards those first two Superman movies. If you're going to set a sequel after that point, you're going to have to match what those first two films set up, and I don't really think that this film executed that greatly. The runtime of this film, it was around 2.5 hours, which, don't get me wrong, if you can execute a great movie, like say Avengers Endgame or Infinity War, then that runtime is warranted because those films are just action-packed. Whereas in this movie, we do get some good action sequences, but unfortunately there's a lot of dialogue, and unfortunately some of that dialogue lets down the pacing of this movie. They went for a fresh take and not said like, right, you know, set directly after 5 years of the first two Superman movies, and kind of made this movie a little bit more individual. I felt like this would have actually worked a lot better. The kind of story arc with Richard and his son, but in terms of the husband, James Marsden, his character just reminded me of the one he plays in Sonic the Hedgehog. It's just a generic human character, and I wouldn't recommend Superman Returns to anyone. But overall, Dave, thank you so much for having me onto the channel once again to talk about yet another Superman installment. Again, I've really enjoyed talking about these movies and getting to experience them for the first ever time, and actually getting a chance to check out Superman Returns once again after seeing it originally in the cinemas in 2006. So Dave, back over to you, my man, and your remaining thoughts on Superman Returns.
Thank you once again to Mike from the Z Review for agreeing to join me on this one. You know, kind of like you, I had some hesitation revisiting this movie. I mean, every time that I watch it, I'm usually doing so because I'm rewatching the entire series. I don't think I've really ever rewatched the film on its own because I wanted to see it. And I think that speaks wonders about how people see this movie. I wouldn't outright call it a horrible thing, but I think it's significantly lacking something when you watch it. I don't know if it's soul, individuality, originality. I'm not sure. I just know that something is missing. And I think a big part of that is the fact that for me, it feels like a cosplay. It feels like a lot of these actors are trying to do what the actors in the past have done, which is a bit of a bittersweet feeling for me because I do appreciate the shout outs to that original series, but anytime Brandon Routh tries to do the bumbling Clark thing, especially the same lines Reeve would do, I just didn't believe it. I didn't really find it to be that genuine. Honestly, I believe Brandon Routh did a better job when he reprised the role in the CW series for Crisis on Infinite Earths, because at that point, I felt as if he had a better grasp of making the character his own. Another issue I had with this film is that it's simply too long at 2.5 hours, and I'm saying that after just coming off of Zack Snyder's Justice League, which was 4 hours long, and it still flows better than this movie. Put it this way, my kids have been really enjoying the Superman movies up to this point while I've been watching them, and while watching this film, they fell asleep. Just saying. I'm also not the biggest fan of Lois in this movie. She's probably one of my least favorite renditions of Lois that I've ever seen. I'm still torn on the current Lois in the CW shows, but it's still early on in this point. I don't know. It's an interesting film, and there's certainly things that I think are pretty cool about it, so I'm not going to say that it's bad. At the end of the day, my score will, it'll be positive-ish, but I can't help but feel like the film is just mediocre at best. So let's go ahead and talk about that final score for a second. From an unbiased, technical viewpoint, I think the visuals in this film, as well as the cinematography, are actually better than what you'd come to find in the original films. When it comes down to technical advancements, you can definitely tell where this film is better on a technical level than those earlier films that I deeply love. I can't really say that I love the story with Lex, and I think the pacing is a little bit off, so my unbiased score is 68%. My biased score is a bit lower because, as a whole, I do consider it to be a bit boring, and I do lose my attention from time to time while watching, just because I don't really consider the film to be special in any real shape or form. My biased score is 62%, and when we average out our two scores together, we come to the final rating of 65%. 65 out of 100 possible stars, or a D letter grade. Again, Mike, I think we mostly see eye to eye on this one. Again, I don't hate it, but I do get hesitant at the idea of watching it again. So one last time, guys, I left a link to Mike's channel in my description box below for you all to check out. Give him some love, tell him I sent you. As for this movie, make sure that you let me know your thoughts as a whole in the comment section down below. And as for YouTube, you guys know what to do. Hit that like, subscribe button, and bell to be notified when I come out with my next review. And until then, peace out!
Dave examines movies we just watch for fun. Davey is the expert. He is the #1 critic that I go to when I need a movie pick. Thanks for joining up with us. We